Hello guys, finally you've all been asking for it. We're doing the full rig rundown, top to bottom of my 1996 Hilux Surf. Let's crack into it. So the baseline of this vehicle is a third generation 1996 Toyota Hilux Surf. The stock comes with the 3RZ motor. It is a 2.7 litre fuel injected petrol motor, and you know what a Hilux Surf looks like. This is slightly modified. So let's go through all the mods from the front end all the way to the back end. We might start with the engine because that's the biggest change. So it's still got the 3RZ motor in there from day one, from when it was first built in the factory. It hasn't been removed and the head has come off, but the actual pistons and everything hasn't been changed. Why I'm talking about that is because we've done huge upgrades here to be able to get it to a modified level to create a lot of horsepower and a lot more torque than the old 2.7 did. So let's take a closer look here. If you're not into engines or anything as much as I am, then this is probably going to be a bit of a boring part, but we'll get through it or skip ahead. I've got chapters down below. We've got the 2.7 litre here, and we've gone ahead and turbocharged it. So we've added on a big turbo on the side, which means we have to change the intake, we have to change the exhaust manifold, we've got to change the head studs, the head gaskets, etc, etc, etc. So I guess we'll start at the top. It's got a 6-boost manifold from Golby Parts in Australia. That is a race design manifold, so all the exits are the same length to be able to produce consistent airflow to the turbo. We've got a turbo bolted onto that, which is a Power Spirit. It's a Chinese brand, I guess. I've never heard of them, but it's gone hard, it's done hard. It was probably bigger than I needed. Doing a lot of research online, most people build these engines for race applications, i.e. drag. The 4x4 guys said this would do the job, but it's a little overkill, if I'm honest. Also off the back of that manifold has the exit for a wastegate. So we've got the Turbosmart Hypergate 45 there so that we can manage our boost quite accurately and we can expel all those wastes. Although it is only a 4-cylinder, it's 2.7 litre, it's still chugging a lot of air through both the intake and exhaust ports, so we need to make sure we've got a gap large enough so we don't accidentally overboost. Feeding that intake is of course the stainless steel snorkel that we have coming into our airbox, and inside that airbox is just your basic paper filter that you can buy from any Repco store throughout any part of the country, and it just suits any V8 engine, so it's going to be doing plenty and I can get them easily when I want them. That's plumbed into our turbo of course, then that splits it back out into our front mount intercooler, which is just a little one that you can actually tuck up in behind the grille, and it's made to look stock, which is kind of brilliant and I kind of like it. That of course feeds up around, unfortunately the 3RZ intake faces across the motor. Most of the Toyotas did in this era, the KZ goes across the motor, and so we do have to do this big loop that then puts it back into the intake manifold. Now you can do a cut and shut, which is basically cut the end off, shut this end and move it to a forward intake, but that's a lot of hard work that I'm not a fabricator. So that's the airflow part done and dusted. Now the stuff you don't see is of course going to be a bit more in the engine. So to be able to handle more than 7 psi in the motor and not lift the head, which is the notorious thing to do, once you go above 7 you can lift the head. I've pulled the head off and we've installed both the Commetic Head gasket, which is a metal head gasket, and then we've bolted that down with ARP head studs. So I've had no head issues, I've had no leaking, and it's been absolutely brilliant and run hard. The other things to consider here is if I'm jamming more air into the engine, then I also need to jam more fuel into the engine. And so another thing you can't see is the injectors that are dotted along, but that's feeding a heck of a lot more fuel into the motor so that then I can put a heck of a lot more air into the motor and therefore make a heck of a lot more power from the motor. In conjunction with that, I have to be able to feed that more fuel. So in the tank at the back there is a 255 litre per minute pump that's got rid of the old stock one, and we've thrown the aftermarket Dietschwerks in there. So new pump, new injectors, and to be able to handle all that we then need a fuel pressure regulator that can regulate the fuel to the right pressure we want. So tucked up the front here we've got our Turbosmart FPR 800, and that's regulating my fuel pressure that's going into the motor, and we can adjust it from there if we want more or less, and generally we've got it tweaked at the moment pretty nicely. To be able to handle, look after and monitor everything that's going on in the engine here, we've then had our AEM boost controller and AFR gauges put in. So that there is looking after my boost. I can then tweak it whether I want more or less or just spring pressure, and we're currently sitting at 10 psi of boost on the main map. The air fuel controller, the AFR, which is the air fuel ratio gauge, plumbed into the back of the exhaust housing here, is reading how much fuel and air is coming through that exhaust. If there's too much fuel, she's riching out, and if she's too much air, she's leaning out. We want to keep it in the middle there, so that can then tweak the motor a bit more. We've got the map sorted, but it still has a little bit of play that it can change itself as it goes along, and this means I'm pretty much sitting in the safe zone all the time. Hence the reason we've got Haltech on the side of it here, to be able to monitor all this, take in all that information and then feed it back into the engine and everything do the right thing. It's running a Haltech 750 Elite that is taking all that information, decoding it, and then putting things where it needs to be. It can adjust the air fuel ratio, it's been mapped in there for the power curve, we've got our boost controller, and overall it's doing a damn good job of doing its job, which I love. And we're running currently 10 psi and we're pulling 220 horsepower and 450 foot-pounds of torque, I think. So the motor's doing great. The power increase has been phenomenal. I love it. I can't get over it. The only thing I would change if I was going to change something is get a smaller turbo so we spool up faster. At the moment we're kind of, once she starts to spool, it doesn't want to stop and you're kind of just having to run through gears or wheel speed too much. Moving back to the front here, we have the MCC bullbar. This is just your basic good old-fashioned one. Nice and cheap, Facebook Marketplace, picked it up for 300 bucks, cannot complain. And then we've gone through and wrapped coated it, which has done a damn good job of protecting it as I bash it into stuff. Housed inside there is the IRONMAN winch, which has also got the Factor 55 flat link on the front there. And overall, haven't had a chance to use it if I'm honest. Oh, I pulled one guy out of the river. It was a sad day for him as it rode his truck off, but we got him out. Good old Pajeros. So that's been bloody brilliant, but that's going to be pulled out and swapped to the Trident very soon. Up the front here, I've also got my Oricom UHF aerial. This is just your basic one from Repco. You used to be able to get a kit for about 150 bucks, would be the aerial and the radio, which is inside as well, mounted in the dash. The one thing I have changed is because the bull bar gets rid of your bumper, which has your indicators, I've gone through and put little LED amber indicators here, and that runs through a relay inside. It's utilizing the standard relay, but it's one designed for LEDs, so it can actually handle it. And then I've just drilled them into the little plate there. Has done amazingly well, looks awesome, nice, clean and tidy. It's been brilliant, apart from the fact that these are from AliExpress and the wires came really tiny. So I need to find myself a new set of these, otherwise I've loved it. In the sense of forward-facing lights, we've got the 3 laser lamps along the top there, the Triple Rs. They have been phenomenal when it comes to lighting my way in the dark. They are just put out an immense amount of light, almost too much at times. It's brilliant. To assist those, we've also got the ditch lights. They're all spot, and so these can then grab that spread so I can see the ditches or the other road. And these have just been the Auxbeams. They have been brilliant as well. I've loved the look of them. I love the look of ditch lights, and I'll be getting some more on my next rig for sure. Now my tyre and suspension combo. This is of course the MAXXIS RAZR MTs. They've been a brilliant tyre. These ones are the 285/75R16s, so 33s basically. And to be able to fit them, I have had to bash and trim a little bit of the seam here, just to be able to get them to clear. And once that was gone, we have not had an issue at all. So they've been brilliant, and they have really been an amazing tyre. They have been squeezed in there because of my old Man Emu lift kit. This has been a bit of a custom build one because there is no 3-inch lift kit for the Surf. There's only the 2 inches. And so I've had to do a lot of research to be able to try and find what works and what doesn't. And it's squeezed under there by utilizing a variety of different bits and pieces. Check out the iCard above there to be able to grab that full install of the 3-inch lift kit. But it's been an old Man Emu gear and it's been brilliant. It's done well. To be able to also, with that 3-inch lift kit, I've also fitted a diff drop in there to be able to bring those CVs back in alignment as I was pulling CVs out of sockets. But that's all fixed now, we're good to go. Something that you won't see and I can't show you is the front diff in there. Inside there is an auto locker. It's a Spartan auto locker imported from the United States via Amazon, and it has been the biggest thing I've done to this to be able to gain traction. Being IFS, of course, it doesn't like to drop wheels and it loves to lift them. So adding in that auto locker in the front there just means that I've kept traction the whole way through, and it's made me look like a very good driver. The Surf does have one little issue, and that issue is that it's got a rear tailgate that lifts up, and so therefore you cannot run a 270 awning and you can't run a 180 awning. So we've just run the good old Kings, picked it up, of course, for next to nothing, and it's taken an absolute beating. It does the job of being an awning, and it's been bent over the top of the vehicle twice, and it still works. Can't complain. That's mounted to this combat style rack that we've been able to pick up. This has been built by a guy up in the North Island. You can find him on Instagram, link below. And it's been a wicked way to be able to fit everything we want up there. We've had rooftop tents up there. We've got the laser lamps mounted up there. We've got the awning mounted to it. There are other options out there, but this has been brilliant to be able to just house everything. And I love the look of it on my Surf. Jumping into the cab here, we've got my AEM, both my TruboostX gauge and my air fuel ratio gauge. That's feeding both me and the ECU information on what the engine's doing, and has been brilliant to diagnose power drops or fuel issues or whatever it may be. Got my Oricom little radio, and up in the center console here in the roof, I've installed a little Auxbeam switch panel, which does all my lighting. So that's both all the front lights and all the rear lights, both the backup and the amber, as well as my compressor there. Overall, pretty stock. We've also got an override switch down here for my REDARC dual battery isolator. So in the event that I kill my starter battery, I can feed power from my rear to the front and start my engine using my house battery. Pretty simple, does the job, been brilliant. Also reverse camera because, well, you can't see out the back. I'm currently sitting in a Recaro seat. We've got two of them in the front here. They're from an old Bighorn, and then I've had them mounted to some aftermarket seat rails, and they have been an amazing comfort upgrade to be able to then hold me in my seat while we're rocking around on the tracks. Now, tucked down in the corner here is this little switch panel I've installed. They are 3 triple-way rocker switches, and they are connected to my light bars. So why? Well, in the middle, if they're all selected in the middle, the light bars cannot be turned on. They cannot be turned on by the high beams nor by the switches I've got up on the roof. If they're all down, or any of them are down, then those particular lights will come on with my high beam switch. If any of them are up, then those particular lights can be controlled by the switch panel on the roof console there. So depending on what my needs are at the time, if I'm bombing along the highways and I want everything on the high beams, or if I'm at camp we just need an excessive amount of light to be able to maybe get someone unstuck or something, I can then just switch them to the switch panel at the top there. Brilliant little addition that fixed a few issues. In the back seat here, there's actually still a lot of space, and we've still got our back seats. I've never sat in the back here. This is actually so much leg room. What the hell? This is comfy. So in behind me here, we've got our little cargo barrier, and in behind that is, of course, where we've got all our wiring panels, the back of our wiring panels. We've got spare parts down here, like if I blow a CV, I've got a stub axle end that I can at least get out, as well as a whole spare CV and then axle in there. And that houses my molly pouches for various bits and pieces. We've got max trap straps in there, we've got deflators in there, first aid kits, torches, etc., and the fire extinguisher. A great way just to mount a whole bunch of stuff that's easy access and out of the way. These molly pouches, brilliant. At the back here, we've got some hidden aux beams up the top. These are both my reverse lights and my chase lights. I have found chase lights to be an amazing addition for New Zealand roads. Being able to see in the dust from the gravel has been huge when we're doing convoys. People have loved it, and the rest of the convoys slowly starting to adapt and grab chase lights as well. I recommend it for New Zealand. It's also got, of course, we've got camp lights up here, laser lamps either side here, and now to the camp setup. Whole back's just been rebuilt and looking tidy. Taking a closer look inside here, we've got 2 drawer systems, both of them doing drawer things. And then we've got the big fridge slide here with the fridge is currently not on there because we're looking at other bits. But there's your fridge slide. This is just a gear access area. We've got some straps to be able to hold things down, strap them in so the chair goes in there, other bits and pieces, bags, cargo gear, etc. And then we have a table. This is a full fold-out table, bit of a kitchen table, I guess. It has a little shelf that lifts up and a little area to be able to cook on and a little area to put a bin on. That has been great. I used to run quite a large kitchen system that's now gone to the Triton, so this has been great to sort of break it down to a smaller size. In the back, we've got our switch panel. This is our solar input. We've got all our fuses there. The 2 plugs for both the 12-volt oven mounted up here, and the one's going to be the fridge. And then finally a full-blown isolator that can isolate the house battery completely from the vehicle. House battery is situated off the left-hand side there. It is just a deep cycle battery, nothing fancy about it. You get them from Repco. I have not thrown a lot of money into the 12-volt. And then a little switch panel at the back here that does all my cabin lights, being the ones on the side or the ones up in here. So I've installed some Amazon rock lights. They go into the tailgate here. So as I pop the tail up, I can switch those lights on and we have camp lighting at camp. Brilliant. And then we've hard mounted the compressor in there, which of course is controlled up the front, and that pumps up all my tyres. It's been a recent addition to rebuild all this. It looks damn tidy, and unfortunately I have not had a chance to use it yet, but I'm sure it's going to go down bloody well. So one thing that is missing is a spare wheel of some sort. So me and Dad have recently just gone through, 3D scanned the back of the truck, designed and drawn up the whole rear bar, and it's been currently being built. We've test fitted it, it looks good, and we're going to have the spare wheel carrier, swing out carrier on the back, stamped in with Lost Sheep Adventures. Love it, but one more mod to go over. And that is the entire back axle. So what I mean by that is we've done a disc brake conversion on this. You can do it pretty easily. It's just a Prado rear axle. It's the same chassis. You can just bolt it in and swap it out, and then you're running disc brakes rears and drum brake handbrake. So it's been an amazing upgrade. Of course, if I've got more power, if I've got more speed, then I need to be able to have more braking, and so we've gone with the disc brake conversion. It's just a Prado rear axle and a master cylinder from a Prado as well to be able to, of course, handle those disc brake rears. We've swapped my diffs into there, so I'm running 4.5 diff ratios, both front and back. That's what the petrol came stock with, and it has some very, very long legs with this turbo setup. Ideally, I'd like to look at 4.8s, maybe even 5.10s, like it's very long. I tackle almost every obstacle in first gear because second just is too much wheel speed. But Prado rear axle in there, and to be able to get the suspension just right, we've also gone and welded on a Panhard correction kit. So rather than getting an adjustable Panhard rod that can come undone and it's just a pain in the ass, I've opted for a Panhard correction kit, which is just a weld-on bracket that then balances out your Panhard depending on your lift levels. And so my Panhard here is nice and straight as it should be, and it's been a wicked little addition that hasn't really costed too much. It came with one for both ends, so we've welded on the chassis end, but I still have the spare one for the axle end in the event that I need to cut that out or swap them over or whatever happens. That's been a wicked upgrade as well, having disc brakes. Huge amount of braking capacity. So there you have it. That is my 1996 Toyota Hilux 3rd generation Surf, and it has been brilliant. It goes hard, it sounds hard, it is a weapon off-road, and keeps up with the 80 series and the GQs, I can tell you that. It's brilliant. It does have a few more little things it needs tweaking, but ultimately it's been a weapon of a rig. I've loved having it for the last few years, but yeah, let me know. Is this the kind of thing you'd build? What changes would you make? Or what's one more modification you'd slap on there? Otherwise, guys, we're going to catch you in the next one. Thank you kindly for chilling out and watching, and we'll see you again shortly. Now, doing these upgrades has been a wicked power increase, and it's definitely made it a tad raucous.